Hello and welcome to this demo video for the questionnaire report. So before we start, just one question. What is a questionnaire report? Well, what it is essentially a lot of setting up, but I'll show you how to do that. It produces a questionnaire which answers up to 15 questions or asks up to 15 questions. You can select your answer, and based on your answer and the points earned, it produces a report to show you how successful you've been in answering those questions. Now, this could be used for a product review. This could be used for to find if your potential clients are suited to the services that you offer. This could show how good a potential client is at doing whatever they need to be doing in order to show how, whether they need your services or anything like that. So whatever you use this for is totally up to you. The point system is totally up to you. Whether a high score is good or bad is totally up to you. I'll show you how all of this works. But that's essentially what a questionnaire report is: a set of questions that can get answered and produce a report. So obviously you've got various answers that are acceptable. So let's go back to the beginning and let's show you how to work this. First of all, the intro and setup page is obviously quite important. Your business name will appear in here. Here is a questionnaire. This is the word questionnaire essentially, which will appear on top of the questionnaire at the top there. If you want to change that and I don't know, call it questions or something else other than questionnaire, you can put another word there. It will replace that. You can also change the report name. So if you have a look on the report, at the top here it says Compatibility Report, and then down here it says Spreadsheet Solution Service Compatibility Report. You can select what those say, and at the bottom here are the defaults if you were to leave them blank. So that's the first thing to set up. The second thing to set up over here, there's some instructions which will appear on the report, so you can then say, how you want people to answer the report. I've put some instructions in here for myself. If you leave this blank, there will be some very simple default instructions, but you can put in the instructions here as to what you would like people to be doing on the report. And that is essentially it. Some demo videos here that you can watch, but that's the setup process for the report, or the initial setup. The second part of the setup is to insert your logo. Now, you need to, obviously, I would advise testing this before on the free trial version, but in most versions of Excel, especially the more up-to-date versions, you can insert an image. If you go up to the top here and say insert and then pictures, you can actually insert a picture, resize it, and fit the picture within the black border. As I've done here, I put my logo inside there. Anything that overlaps the black or comes outside of the black box, or at least onto the black box, will not show. But anything within the black border will show over here on your report and on your questionnaire. So you can insert your logo, center it, make sure it's in the right position, that kind of thing, resize it on this page, and it'll show on your questionnaire and your report. So that's the initial setup of the document. Then what you can do is you can move into the question and answer setup. Now you've got up to 15 questions that you can ask. All you need to do is type in the question in here. So it's a fair bit of space, so you can go into a bit of detail. If you want to drop down a line over here and you're busy typing, just click Alt and Enter, and it'll drop down. If you just click Enter, it'll think that you've finished with that cell and move on. So you've got your questions that you can input here, and each one of them you can input up to 5 answers. You don't have to use all 5 as I've done here, but you can input 5 answers, and then assign the points to each answer. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and you've got to think about it. The reason being is I initially wanted to make the spreadsheet and actually lock in the points. So it was 5, 4, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, that kind of thing, and have answers such as, often, sometimes, not applicable, seldom, never, that kind of thing. But what I ended up doing was, if I do it like this, it gives you far more flexibility. It allows you to create what you want in this report. Now, what you first got to ask yourself is, are you asking a positive report or a negative report, in the sense that does a high score mean the person's doing really well, or does a high score mean the person's in a lot of trouble? Sometimes you want to do it one way. Sometimes you want to show people that, ask them kind of questions that the higher score they get, the more negative it is. So if they get 100%, then they desperately need your services. Other times you want to ask someone the other way around, where if they get 100%, it means they're doing really well and they don't need your services. That kind of thing. So you've got to ask yourself the question and then play around with these points. Because the more points, obviously, as you can see here, I've got 20 points there. But then when you come down the bottom, I've got a really important question, which for me is the most important. So I've given a lot more points, meaning that if they get this answer right, because the way I've done my question is the higher score they get, the more they actually need to get hold of me. So if they get a low score, it means they're not going to be using my services and they don't need to bother. If they get a high score, they need to get hold of me urgently. So obviously these questions, if they answer positive for these, I want them to be a load of points. So you just need to play around with the points that you give, because obviously if you give higher points for certain questions, it gives them a lot more weight. But then if the person answers those questions negatively, they're not going to get a great score because they haven't answered them, that kind of thing. So there are pros and cons of putting high or low scores, and you can play around with this. I've done it like this on purpose to give you far more flexibility, so you can essentially decide how valuable each question is and how valuable each answer is for each of those questions. But what I would suggest is play around with that. And then the second part of this is your response. So what I've done is we've broken the scores into three categories. You've got your red, your amber, and your green. Now, obviously, red is a low score that could be positive or negative, and green is a high score, again, that could be positive or negative depending on how you want to do things. So here there are default of 67% to 32%, but you can change those percentages, the two white ones, and obviously as you do, if you change that to 35, that will change, the amber will change accordingly. So you can edit those two, the lower green and the higher red, and the other ones this will always be 0, that will always be 100%. These ones will change accordingly. So you can decide what falls within the red, what falls within the amber, and then what falls within the green. And then what you can do is you can then give a response for each of those different categories. So you can type in your response if they score 100%. Now, this will only be if they get a perfect score. Now, again, whether it's good or bad, would decide what you type in here. Then you've got your green, your amber, and your red. And again, if it's good or bad, depending on which one's the best one, you need to put in a response for each of those color categories. And obviously, balancing this page with the questions may take you a little bit of time just to get the point system right so it's correct for you and exactly what you need. But once you've done that, and what you could do this and you could play around with the questionnaire, but essentially once you've at least done the questions and the answers, put the questions and the answers, those questions will then appear on the questionnaire in the same order. And what would happen is, okay, I've filled these in, but these would be blank like that, and we'd say answer required. So at the top here, you can see you're 80% completed. If you click on your report will show nothing because it's not complete yet. But once they've answered all the questions that need to be answered, so you've got your drop-down lists as per what you put in the setup. And as you can see, when you go down, these questions weren't used, so they say no answer required. So they're all green to say that all the answers are now done or not required. At the top here, it says 100%. They're the instructions that you put in on the first page. There's your logo that you had. Here, that would be the name, whatever you've changed questionnaire to. Your business name would be in there, and that would be the questionnaire. So once the questionnaire is answered, then you can click on the report, and you can see the score that's been earned based on those questions. You can also see your response to the score. So this one fell in the green, so it's pulled up what I've said for the green category. It also shows your highest scoring answer, the question and your answer for the highest scoring one, and it also shows your question and your answer for the lowest scoring one. So what that does is it will show you the question where you score the highest and the question where you score the lowest, and that would be based on the score earned for each question compared to the highest possible score for that question as a percentage. So essentially that would be your report that would be generated. Now what I would do is test it out, answer some questions, see if you get the kind of result that you're expecting, and if you're not getting the result you're expecting, then go back to the question answer setup and adjust the points. And as you adjust the points here, you'll be able to see your report will change straight away. And that's a good way just to test and answer a few of these questionnaires, maybe answer one really well, really poorly, and in the middle, and see if you get the right kind of score until you've tweaked it to the point that it suits your business and your requirements. I know it's a little bit of work to do that, but I wanted to give you the most flexibility in order to create the perfect report for you, rather than tell you how many points and what answers you could have. So that's that. Now, what else can this do? Well, because you've got your questionnaire in your report, the big question now is, how do you want to gather the information? If you've got a website form or something where people are answering questions and you're actually going to input these questions yourself, then set it up, have the spreadsheet ready, and when they send the questions in, just select the answers. It will produce a report that you can then save as a PDF and send to them, if that's the way you want to do it. If you actually want to send them the spreadsheet, you've obviously got all of these pages which you don't necessarily want them to see. So if you click on review, you'll see that I've left the workbook unprotected. The sheets are protected, but the workbook is unprotected. So what that means is you can actually come down here. So let's say you've set it all up, it's all ready to go. You can come to the intro and setup. You can click, right click, and you can say hide. You can then go to the logo insert. You can write and say hide. You can go to questions and answers, right click and say hide. You can go to response and setup, hide. So all they see is the questionnaire. Now the question is, do you want them to see the report straight away? If the answer is yes, you want them to see straight away the answers, you can leave that. If you say no, you want them just to fill in the questionnaire and send it back, and you want to unlock the report, save as a PDF and send to them, then you can hide that as well. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you want them to see the report. Now you've hidden all the confidential ones. If you click on review, you can click on protect workbook and type in a password. Now, whatever password you type in there, please remember it. If you forget that password, I can't get you in. You can't get a password. You can't retrieve that password. So please don't forget what that is. But once that's locked, you can send this to your client, because they can't unhide, because the workbook's locked. They can't get into those. The only way to get those sheets back again is to go to review, protect workbook. It's grayed out because it's locked. Click it again, put in your password, and then you can right click and you can say unhide, and it'll ask you which ones, and you can just say okay, and you can go through all the different tabs and unhide them again. Unhide, unhide, and you're back to where you started again. So you've obviously got some flexibility depending on how you're collecting the data. Remember to put your logo in, do the intro and setup first. You've got your questions and setup. That's obviously important. Keep in mind your points. Balance them with the red, amber, green. Put in your responses for each of the different color categories, and then do a questionnaire yourself. Do a few of them. Check the report, balance them with your questions and answers until you've got the correct setup. And once you've got the correct setup, use this however you plan to use it to gather the information and use the reports. If you would like a customized version of this, obviously this is quite a generic version, although there's a lot of customization possible within the spreadsheet. If you'd like a completely bespoke version, please do get in touch. Be happy to have a look at making one specifically for you. Otherwise, I wish you all the best with this and with your business in the future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.